The cycle of getting on cocaine and alcohol on weekends is a real destructive one. And it's Friday today. Excuse me for not having a shirt on. It's been about 35 degrees in the southeast of England, so you can't blame me. But yeah, I mean, today is Friday, and just thinking back to like what I'd usually be doing, do you know what I mean, when I was using cocaine and alcohol, especially on a Friday, because essentially as a cocaine and alcohol addict, your whole week is building around to like this excitement of the Friday, getting on it, getting on the session and just going absolute bonkers. Some people may call it a release, others may just see it as fun, but really down the line eventually it just becomes destructive. And for me it would be like getting Friday, you go to the pub after work, wouldn't you? After a few beers you're calling it in, getting whatever it is, a gram and a half, and just absolutely going on a mad one. Probably getting minimal sleep on a Saturday. The next thing you know, you're trying to continue that on a Saturday. So I'd usually either be down Wetherspoons or having beers at home, and just getting myself continuing that session for the next day. And I'd always do the same thing. I'd drink early on a Saturday, end up peaking too early, and then kind of feeling flaggy and run down on the Saturday evening. If I'm really on a mad one, then I'd continue that Friday into the Saturday night, and then it kind of meant that Sunday was just pure darkness and regret and just wishing that you never made all them decisions, because you knew what was coming. You knew Monday was coming, and that meant back to reality, back to work, back on the grind, but the issue with when you're in that cycle of using cocaine and alcohol week in, week out, is that you don't really think about the consequences of your actions. What your brain usually redirects you to or directs you to is how good it felt, and that is the problem, and that is why it's so hard to break the habit, because it's such a strong and big dopamine hit that nothing really in life, day-to-day activities, gives you that kind of dopamine spike, and it really does ruin your dopamine system. And for me, breaking the cycle was a few things. It was eventually I've run its course with me. I'd done it so much, I started really drinking and sniffing cocaine at 18 and continued that all the way to 29. So I had a fair amount of years, fair amount of usage, and eventually it got to the point where it ruined things in my life. So that's what eventually made me to make the decision to go sober and break that habit. But you never know what people's situations are, I think I changed now because I lost everything and I finally understood that I had a problem and it had to be addressed, basically. But for the 11 or 10 years prior to this, it was a secret of mine. I wouldn't tell anyone. It would be my little thing and a dark secret that I hated. But then I eventually told my parents, friends knew how bad it got, and that's what got me to break the cycle. I think it was like one day, enough was enough. I'd lost a lot in my life, made a hell of a lot of mistakes. So it was like go one direction, which was continue doing that and just absolutely destroy myself, or finally make a change and go sober. And a few things I've been doing, especially on Fridays, like what I'm doing now, is just going out for a walk, because the cravings do come and go. So you got to eventually get to the point where you're going to say to yourself, I'm not going to run from these emotions anymore. I'm going to face them head on and start to start to build some trust back in yourself again, and some respect, you know, so that you know how to handle these things, because it ain't easy. You know, one of the hardest things, I'm sure if you went in the comments and wrote about your experience, I think most people would say, yeah, it is tough, but then others on the other side of the, you know, of the story are gonna be saying, oh, but been sober for X amount of years and life's amazing. But you've got to go through a hard journey to get there. It's either the hard journey of keep doing what you're doing, but that really leads to nothing, or the hard journey to change and be better. And that's the journey I'm on at the minute. But you got to understand, you know, with this, the cycle of drugs and addiction is it is hard. And what happens is that you really only live in 3 pure days of life. And by that I mean, because you're absolutely destroyed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you don't really remember it. It's all a bit of a blur. Monday you feel like death. Tuesday you're very fatigued and just getting back into the swing of things. And then Wednesday you're starting to feel yourself again. Thursday you feel great. Friday you're ready to rock and roll again. And at some point it needs to stop before it destroys you, or it destroys the people around you. But yeah, that's really kind of how my weekends looked when I was using. But now they kind of look a lot more peaceful. I've picked up more overtime at work, so I'm working a bit more. I go to church on Sundays, and I want to start doing a bit more like community service and giving back and try and really heal my heart. But yeah, I hope maybe whoever listens to this video, watches it, it may help you think a bit differently about the decisions you're making this weekend. Anyway, I best get back to this walk and get home before the heat gets to me. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Peace.